بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد يقول الله عز وجل وعد الله الذين آمنوا منكم وعملوا الصالحات ليستخلفنهم في الأرض كما استخلف الذين من قبلهم وليمكنن لهم دينهم الذي ارتضى لهم وليبدلنهم من بعد خوفهم أمنا يعبدونني لا يشركون بي شيئا ومن كفر بعد ذلك فأولئك هم الفاسقون. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that Allah has made a promise to those among you who believe and do good deeds. He will make them successors to the land. As He did those who came before them, He will empower the religion He has chosen for them. He will grant them security to replace their fear. They will worship me and not join anything with me. Those who are defiant after that will be the rebels. And in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses something that is very fundamental and something that is very important, and that is this idea of change. And how that change can only come when we follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we obey His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And why is it that we desire this change? Why is it that we want this change? Because this is an obligation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made for us once He made us His khulafa, His vice-regents and His representatives on this earth. Allah has given us the choice, He's given us the ability. And walillahi alhamd, we all live in a place where all of these tools are available to us to better ourselves. We can better ourselves spiritually, we can better ourselves emotionally, we can better ourselves socially, and one of the purpose of the program today is to better ourselves financially. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the upper hand is better than the lower hand, that the giving hand is better than the receiving hand, and in both of them is khair and both of them is good. And how many of us know that when it comes to coming to praying for the salawat, or to coming and representing ourselves, or standing in front of people, if I have that nagging voice in the back of my head, how will I make rent? How will I pay my bills? How will I put gas in my car? How much different is that salah? How much different is that dua versus the individual who has that financial literacy versus that person who has that financial stability? All of us have faced different hardships. All of us have faced different difficulties. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through those adversities, through those hardships, through those difficulties, has allowed us to reach where we are today and who we are today. In part of our responsibility, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us very, very clearly, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ, that when you are thankful, I will only increase you. And part of being thankful is understanding the tools. Part of being thankful is understanding the ability. Part of being thankful is using these tools and these abilities to better ourselves so that we can help others. And now, walillahi alhamd, that we have that opportunity, and we want to thank Azad Investing for coming out and sponsoring the program today. They are here to help teach us and give us financial tools. One of my personal goals for this community is that everybody becomes rich. Really, it is. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make everybody here rich, ameen, in this world and in the next. There's no reason that we should be poor. Walillahi alhamd. We are educated, we are capable, we are able, and we have all of the facilities available to us. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to empower us and to allow us to benefit from the presentation today. فَلْيَتَفَضَّلْ مَشْكُورًا مَأْجُورًا. We ask, inshallah, who's going to be presenting first? Zubair? طيب, Jazakumullah khair. I'm going to ask them to introduce them themselves. They sent me the presentation, they got everything ready, and the one thing I forgot to ask them was their bio.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. So today I'm going to take you through for some of you, you'll find some of this basic, and for some of you it might be eye-opening, but I think it's really important to talk about investing from the ground up, even if you're somebody who's already got some money in the market, because maybe you forgot some of the basic principles of why you've invested your money in your 401k or your retirement plan. And just looking at it on a step-by-step basis, block-by-block basis, I think may help you in the long run. Just see how, okay. So to get started, my name is Zubair Khan. I work for Azad Asset Management. I'm an advisor there. I started working there in 2019. Our firm has been around since 1997, and I've been in the industry since around 2007. So I've been doing this for a long time. So where do we start? okay? The first thing you have to understand is the basic difference between saving and investing, okay? Saving is just putting money away, right? It's the act of putting some money aside to let it grow, okay? It's just that basic act of putting money away. For some people, that's the hardest part of this whole thing, is just having money set aside out of every paycheck or, annually or whatever it is. They just don't do that. But that's the first building block. That's where you start. You start putting money away. But you can't just put money away, okay? It's a lot more complicated than that now. In the past, maybe you could put your money and it would just keep growing, keep gaining value. There would be no inflation. There'd be nothing to worry about. But that's just not the way it works, okay? And we don't have a lot of things that people in the past used to have in the US, like pensions and Social Security. Those kind of things just don't exist the way they used to, or don't have the same impact on our livelihood that they used to. So we have to do what's called investing, okay? So saving is just putting money away. Investing is deciding what to do with that money, okay? What is the action that I can take right now that's going to make my money grow the fastest? Well, for Muslims, you also have to think of how you can do it, doing it in an ethical way, in a way that's consistent with your beliefs and your relationship with God. So why do we invest? Number one, we don't have things like pensions anymore. Social Security is, we worry about Social Security existing in a couple of years. Even if you do get Social Security, it's not that vast a sum of money that you get every month from your Social Security paycheck. It's not going to necessarily allow you to live the kind of lifestyle you're accustomed to living during retirement. So you've got to do more. And one of the biggest things that we have to worry about is inflation, okay? That is the number one reason why we put our money into something like the stock market, which can go up and down. Because inflation is going to have a dramatic effect on our money. For example, $200,000 now, at an average rate of inflation of 3%, in 10 years will be worth $150,000 in terms of purchasing power. 3%, we're at much higher inflation rates right now. You guys have probably been hearing about inflation in the news all the time lately, okay? That is a significant impact on our futures, okay? On our ability to kind of live the lifestyle that we're accustomed to during our working years. So we have to do something to counteract that. So what do? We have to start saving. And saving isn't something you start 3 years from now when you get a better job. It's not something you start 10 years from now when you've paid off your mortgage or your home. It's something you've got to start now. Because the more money you put away today, the faster it'll grow, the more impact it'll have. You put away $100 every month with an average rate of growth of 6%. In 5 years, it'll be worth $6,900. In 10 years, it'll be worth $16,000, and so forth. $500 will be worth $34,000 in 5 years. By 20 years, that'll be worth $230,000, just putting away $500 every month, getting just a decent rate of in the market, 6%, which is completely doable. So what do we have to do? The number one step is to get your finances organized, okay? Know what your budget is, know how much you're spending on a monthly basis, okay? Once you figure that out, you've got to make sure you save up enough for what we call an emergency bucket, okay? What an emergency bucket is a savings account or a bank account with at least 6 months worth of your fixed expenses sitting in cash. Okay, fixed expenses are like your mortgage, your rent, your utilities, things you're going to have to pay no matter what. You need to put that money in cash and keep it stored away in case you lose your job, in case you have some sort of emergency like your car breaks down. That's not money you should be investing in the market, okay? For you to succeed in investing in the market, you have to keep your money away for years. Because what you don't get a lot of on CNBC and all of these other, stock market channels is that we're better predicting what is going to happen in the market long term than we are tomorrow. I have no idea if on Monday I'm going to wake up and the market's going to be up that day or down. I don't know. But I know how stocks perform over time. I know how large cap stocks are going to work over a 10-year period. They're going to grow at a certain rate. And if you keep your money invested over that period, you're going to benefit from it. You don't need to be the greatest stock picker on earth. You've just got to put your money in the market and put some money in some good investments, and you'll do well. And you have to diversify. So you've got to put that money away. You've got to have that emergency bucket. Then you start putting the money into the market. And you've got to take a look at what you're comfortable with in terms of risk, what your goals are, what your time horizon is. So when you invest, these are the first couple of things you have to determine. What are your goals? Is your goal to save for retirement? Is your goal to save for your kids' education? Is it to save for a home you want to buy? Whatever your goals are, you have to figure out what they are and how much time you have until you reach that period in your life where you want to meet that goal. Your time horizon, and then your risk tolerance, okay? How comfortable are you if you look at your account tomorrow and it's down 5%? Are you going to take all of your money out of the market and put it back in cash because you've lost some money? Okay? If you're not comfortable with that, then you have a low risk tolerance, and maybe you should be in something a little more conservative. If you're somebody who looks at the market day to day and says, okay, today it's down, tomorrow it's up, it doesn't really matter, I know long term it's going to be just fine, then you're probably somebody who has more of a tolerance for risk. So you have to understand yourself, because, and the reason why I say that's really important is because if you don't understand yourself and something like the last couple of months have happened in the market and everything is going down, you may be the person who takes your money out when the market is at the bottom and you're losing a lot, okay? You don't want to be that person because then you've guaranteed losses. That's the worst thing you can do in investing, is you need the money when it's the absolute worst time, or you can't stomach the down, so you take your money out, okay? Because when you invest, you understand it's going to be up and down, but long term, it's going to be, your money's going to be growing. It's just part of the process. So you have to understand that. So you have to understand what your risk tolerance is, what your appetite is. If it's low, there's ways to invest where you don't have to take on as much risk, okay? But if you have a high risk tolerance, then you can take on things that are much riskier, okay? And still find ways to succeed. But you've also got to take into account what's called risk capacity, okay? And that's your ability to survive maybe a downturn. If you're putting all of your money into the market and you're worried about losing all of it because you can't live off, you need that money to live off of, then you don't have the same, you can't take on the same level of risk. But if you've got money saved away for emergencies, and then you've got additional money that you can invest, then you've got more ability to take on risk with that money. So you've got to marry those. You've got to kind of find the nice balance in there between making sure you've got the capacity for risk and putting your money at the right, investing your money in accordance with the right level of risk that you're comfortable with. One of the things when you work as an advisor that you get asked all the time, is today the right time to invest? Or what day is the right day to start investing? Everyone's looking for the absolute bottom, the magical bottom, to get their money in, and then once they get in, they're going to be making 20, 30% because they timed it exactly right. That's what a lot of investors are looking to do, okay? But what I'll tell you is that it doesn't matter. Let's say you put in $10,000 in the S&P 500, which is the 500 biggest companies in the US, okay, in 1980. You didn't put any other money into it. By 2012, that $10,000, without adding any other money into it, would have gone to $332,000. But if you missed just the 5 best days in the market during that period, your money would have only grown to $215,000. Okay, just missing 5 specific days, you would have lost over $115,000 in growth, okay? So what that points out is that it's better to be in the market, statistically, than it is to miss one of these 5 specific days because you were trying to time the market. And guess what? you're never going to time the market correctly. You may know something's happening. You may know there's a lot of things in the air in the markets, but how do you act on that? Okay? There's so many intelligent people working on Wall Street. There's people working as economists at JP Morgan that know things about the global economy none of us will even dream of knowing. And they can't figure out what to do at the right time based on all the information that they have. So how are we going to do it? We're not. So the best thing to do is not even to worry about it. And evidence shows you don't have to. You just have to be invested. A good way to take that whole conversation off the table about market timing is what's called dollar cost averaging. A lot of you probably already do this and don't even know about it. If you're putting money out of every paycheck into your 401k, you're dollar cost averaging. And what that is basically just putting in the same amount of money on a consistent basis, whether it's a monthly basis, bi-weekly, annually, you're putting the same amount of money and buying the same thing. And what happens is when the market is at a high, when you go in, you're going to buy less shares of whatever that investment is. And when the market is at a low, you're going to buy more shares of whatever that investment is. Okay? So it just kind of levels off the whole effects of market timing. You're just going to keep consistently putting money in and letting it grow. You don't have to worry about timing. And timing doesn't make any difference anyways, like we've seen in the last chapter. So dollar cost averaging, it's a great way to start saving slowly but surely, letting that money grow. So we're going to go into a little more depth on the different types of investments that are out there. So most of you probably know what a stock is, right? You've heard of stocks. You see the news. A stock is an ownership share in a business. Okay? So when you buy a stock, you're actually owning, you're taking on an ownership interest in a specific company. Okay? So I want you to remember that. You're part of the equity market. Equity is another word for stock. So if you ever hear equity, it also means stocks. And like I said, you have an ownership share in a business. Okay? The reason I say ownership share is because most people don't think about it that way anymore. They're like, I'm buying something with this ticker at this price, I'm selling it at that price. What they don't realize is they're actually buying a company. And eventually, if you're investing long term, how well that business does is going to have an impact on how well that stock price moves up and down, okay? So if you're a day trader, that doesn't matter really, right? It doesn't matter if it's a good company or not. You just want to see it go from a low price to a high price. But if you're buying a company for a 10-year period or a 5-year period, how well they're run, what their books look like, how much revenue they generate, what markets they're in, do they have barriers to entry, all of that stuff is going to matter. Okay? Over the long run, everything sort of evens out, and the companies that are actually well run and have good products are going to succeed. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can, even if you're not a majority stakeholder, you could still take part in actions. You have a lot of say in what a company does. You can ask Azad Asset Management, because our clients invest in companies like Chevron. We went out to Chevron and told them, they were doing business Myanmar, where the Myanmar government was attacking the Rohingya people and killing off a lot of Muslim people in their country. And because Azad and some other members, the other shareholders got together, they got them out of Myanmar. So you as an owner, you have a lot of say and a lot of power. The other option is bonds, okay? Bonds are different than stock. Stock is an ownership. You have an ownership interest in a company. A bond is where you lend money to a business, and then they pay you interest on that, okay? And for the most part, bonds are not halal because they pay interest. So they're not normally a vehicle that we can invest in, but they're Islamic alternatives to bonds. And they're called sukuks, and they're also bank deposits and things like that we can do to sort of simulate what bonds do, okay? So like I said, there's stocks, there's bonds, and then there's things called mutual funds. And what mutual funds are basically a way of pooling people's money together. They can pool together the money of like thousands of investors, and then they're managed by a portfolio manager who chooses either stocks, bonds, or maybe some combination of the two, or some other investments, and then they choose those and manage them for you. Okay, so there's professional management, and basically it's the easy way to diversify. And you probably, if you have a 401k at work or some sort of retirement account, then you probably have your money in mutual funds. Okay, that's probably the number one way most people get into the market is through mutual funds. A newer variant of the mutual fund is an exchange-traded fund. And if you follow the markets at all, you probably heard a lot about these. They're called ETFs. And they're just like mutual funds, except they trade throughout the day. Mutual funds only trade once a day. Exchange-traded funds, or ETFs, trade throughout the day. They're more like stocks, okay? But the same, all the other things apply. They're pooled investment. They're professionally managed by a portfolio manager who chooses the stocks upon which the price of the whole thing is dependent. But they trade daily. They trade throughout the day. So as I said before, mutual fund, investors pool their money together. A fund manager chooses the stocks or the bonds or other investment vehicles to invest in. That generates returns, and that money goes back to the investor. Okay? So because they're so important in the investment world, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a background or things to look for when you're looking to invest in a mutual fund. First thing you want to do is look at the fund's objectives. Okay? Is it there for capital appreciation, income, or protection? Okay? So if it's something that's used for protection, it's probably something that's more conservative. It doesn't generate a high return, but it's also not very volatile. So if you're looking for a way to keep your money growing at a decent pace, but you want to keep it from really, the main goal is basically just to fight inflation and not to lose your money, then you want to look for something that has protection in it. If you want income, income is something like a dividend fund. Something where every month there's some sort of dividend paid out by the company or some sort of payment that's paid out on a regular basis. And these are usually funds that people during retirement like to use, okay? So they want to have some sort of income to live off of or supplement their Social Security and maybe their pension. So they want that income. It may not be something you need when you're younger and you're still working and generating your own income. And then growth, capital appreciation is basically stocks that are designed to grow. They're more volatile. They're for long-term investors, people who have a longer-term time horizon. So fund objective. The next thing to look over when you're looking at a mutual fund is its turnover ratio, okay? Turnover ratio is how often the portfolio manager changes the stocks in the portfolio, okay? And the reason that's important is the higher the turnover ratio, the higher likelihood that the taxes you're going to pay on your investment are going to be higher. Because the more trading that they do, the more gains that they're realizing, and the more taxes you're going to pay. So a higher turnover ratio is bad. So if you have a choice between two mutual funds, one with a lower turnover ratio is usually better than one with a higher turnover ratio. The next thing is the expense ratio. And this is the cost of investing in the mutual fund, okay? With mutual funds, you don't necessarily see, you're not writing out a check to say, hey, I own this investment, this is how much I owe on a monthly basis. No money's coming out of your accounts. You don't even notice that you're paying for this mutual fund most of the time. So the expense ratio is exactly what you're paying for it, and when you see your mutual fund on your, when you log in online or on your bank statement, it's net of that expense ratio. So you have no idea most of the time how much you're paying. So when you start, before you invest, it's important to look at that expense ratio up front and figure out how much of your money is being used to pay the portfolio manager and their team and how much is actually benefiting you in terms of growth. And then looking at all the different risks, okay? There's so many different mutual funds out there. There's so many different strategies. It's important to understand the risks of the mutual funds that you're putting your money into. And these sort of risks will be highlighted in their prospectus or fact sheet, so it's important to just kind of read those through and make sure you understand what you're getting into before you invest. This is an equity style box. And these are the different types of stocks that you can invest in, okay? So there are large stocks, there are medium-sized stocks, and there are small stocks. So what that means is large cap, mid cap, and small cap. So basically, this is the size of the company, okay? Larger companies tend to work in markets differently than smaller companies, okay? And think about it. If you have a smaller company, your potential for growth and high returns is really high. Like if you're like some small company who hits it out of the ballpark in a couple of years, you're going to generate all sorts of shareholders and your returns are going to be phenomenal. But if you don't, you're not going to get those kind of returns. But a larger company, you know who they are. You know they've got a good business model. They've been covered by every analyst on Wall Street. You know, everybody knows about Microsoft. Everybody knows about Apple. They know when a new product is going to come out. These are companies that still will give you returns, but they won't be as high as small cap stocks, but they also won't be as volatile either. So it's important to know whether you're investing in mid cap, large cap, or small cap stocks because they act differently. And then value, blend, and growth. So value stocks are stocks that usually pay a dividend. They're your more well-established companies, your utility companies. There's sort of companies that have been around for a long time and have, you know, they've got a dividend. They're like GE or something, you know, something that's been around for ages, generally speaking. Maybe a utility industry. They're in those kind of like relatively low-risk industries. Growth stocks tend to be companies that are you invest in them more for their future potential than what they've already done, okay? They're your tech companies. They don't pay a dividend. You're getting in them because you think their future growth in terms of revenue is going to be very good, okay? And they've got a lot of potential. And value stocks and growth stocks act differently in different markets. Value stocks tend to do well when the economy is slowing down, okay? If there's going to be slowdown in terms of revenue growth, people are going to put more money into value stocks generally because these companies pay a dividend. Also, these are more stable companies like utility companies. You can't live up without your utilities, right? So they're more safe in that period. Growth stocks tend to do better when the market is booming. So what we've talked about thus far are all the different types of investments. Okay? So it's important to know those. It's important to know the difference between a mutual fund and exchange-traded fund or a stock and a bond. But then there's another level of complexity, and that's what we call an investment vehicle. I like to call it more like an account, an investment account. Okay? What type of account am I going to put my money in? All right? So, for example, 401ks and IRAs are investment vehicles. They're not your mutual funds, they're not your stocks, they're not the actual investments, they're the account that you're holding your money in. And that matters just as much as what you invest in. Because, for example, if you put money in in an IRA, you could potentially get a tax deduction for putting money into that. The money in an IRA or 401k could grow tax-free, okay? Whereas another type of account, you may not get that type of growth. So those kind of things are important to understand and take advantage of as much as you can. Here are the most common types of investment vehicles for retirement. IRAs, they're the traditional and the Roth. And IRAs are basically retirement accounts you can open up on your own. You can go to any bank or any wealth advisory firm or any broker dealer and they can help you open up an IRA, traditional or a Roth IRA. What you have at work is a 401k plan, okay? So a 401k plan is sort of like an IRA, except it's based on, it's an employer-sponsored plan. So it's given to you through your employer, okay? If you're self-employed, you may open up your own 401k as well. You have other options as a self-employed person. But those are through businesses, okay? A 403b plan or a thrift savings plan are options for some of you out there. If you work for a nonprofit or university, you may be invested in a 403b plan. If you work for the federal government, you will be invested in a thrift savings plan or a TSP. But they're basically similar. They've got different names, but they're basically retirement vehicles, and what they do is allow your money to grow tax-free until you take it out. And then some of them act in different ways depending on whether it's a Roth or a non-Roth vehicle. Another powerful set of investment vehicles are vehicles used for colleges. So we've got the retirement vehicles that help you save for retirement, and then we've got these vehicles you can use to invest for college. Coverdell is a way for you to put away $2,000 per year per child and allow that money to grow tax-free. Okay, the great thing about Coverdells is you can invest in them with halal mutual funds and investments. So it's a great way for Muslims to invest for college for their children. You've also got custodial accounts, the UGMA and the UTMA. And basically a custodial account is you opening up an account for your child, and then you act as the custodian. The money is really your child's, but you help make those decisions. Okay? And there's all sorts of tax benefits to opening things like a custodial account, and also it may be a good way to help your children grow money for themselves. And finally, the most commonly used vehicle for college savings plan in the U.S. is the 529 plan. Okay, this is what most people will use to save for college. With the 529 plan, you can put away $15,000 per year per child. Okay, but the difficulty with these 529 plans is they're all run by states, and not a single one of these states has a halal investment option. So if you're looking to invest in a halal way, 529 plans are generally not available to you as an option. Okay, but it's a very powerful tool. So you should know about it. So these are some of the basic things. We'll go into some other things specifically about investing in a halal way and zakah. But these are the very basic ways that you can invest and save your money for retirement or other goals. It's important to have this understanding because I think when you start looking at investing, I think we make it more complicated than it should be. We start thinking about, hey, do I have my money in the best stock? All right, am I getting the most returns? Am I making more in my portfolio than somebody else is in their portfolio? Have I got more winners in my portfolio than somebody else? Honestly, that matters to a degree, but most of what matters is just putting the money away and investing it in a way that's that you're comfortable with. If you do those things, you're going to be successful. It doesn't matter if you were the first person to buy Tesla, right? It doesn't, I mean, yeah, that'd be great, but most people are not going to be the first person to buy Tesla. They're not going to be ready, okay? They're not going to know about that company. So for the rest of us, it's just about investing and doing it the right way, thinking about it, doing it in a smart way. So we're going to start with Brother Basil. Yeah. We'll take a little 5-minute break and then we'll come back.
So if anybody has any questions at this time.
Hi, thank you so much.
Assalamu
Is this on? I was wondering, could you elaborate a little bit on, I believe it was the ratio of investing as it concerns capital gains taxes. My understanding was that if I were to personally invest in a stock and hold it for a year, then I'd be paying 15% capital gains. If I sell it short of that, then it would be based on my income. Are you saying that even within the mutual fund, if the mutual fund manager trades the stock more frequently than a year, I'm responsible for, I guess, the taxes based on that trade?
The way the mutual funds work is if any shareholder sells their shares, the capital gains are spread out, okay? Or if there's internal trading within the portfolio, those capital gains are spread out. So, I mean, in a retirement account, none of that matters, right? But in a taxable account, you want something with a lower turnover ratio. I mean, generally speaking, like you look at it, it's still more efficient than putting your money in a savings account. If you have a savings account and you're earning interest, first of all, that's haram. But number two, interest on a savings account is always taxed at ordinary income tax rate. So you're earning maybe 1% at most in an interest-bearing a savings account or CD, and then you're getting taxed at your ordinary income tax rate, 30%, over 20%. So even with some of those short-term trades and those capital gains in the mutual fund, they're generally still more tax efficient than putting it in cash, right? But yeah, so you have to look at that turnover ratio. The higher it is, the worse your tax situation most likely going to be.
Okay, sure. I guess what I was getting at is, am I getting taxed twice? Because when I cash out whatever account, I've got to pay the taxes on it.
Yeah.
So, so even within the period that you're holding, you're saying that those gain taxes are being spread out.
Yeah. So you're paying some taxes, but then when you sell, some of those are already taken into account, so you're not double taxed on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great. I wonder if you could answer a question about whether something is halal or haram. I was reading some articles that purchasing stock, contracts, and options would be haram because you're not purchasing something that has intrinsic value like a share of a company that you would find in stock. So I'm wondering, does that also apply to taking, let's say, a bearish position on a stock where you would borrow shares, assuming that the price is going to go down, and then sell them in the open market and then have to give it back to the lender?
Yeah, I mean, shorting is haram because you have to borrow money to do it, right?
Okay.
And there's somebody who's going to have to pay interest on that money, even if it's negligible. So it's really haram.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought so. All right, thank you very much.
Sorry. Yes.
What's the average rate of return for that management?
So people always ask us that, but it depends on how you invest, right? So when you come and meet with us, we'll figure out what your risk tolerance is. You remember I was talking about that? We're going to help you figure that out, and then we'll show you the best investment for that, and then we'll tell you what the returns are going to be based on that, okay? Or we'll tell you what they did in the past and what we think they'll do in the future, but obviously it's hard to predict, yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, we've had funds that have done like 40% last year, okay? Is that going to be the same long term? No. But, you know, it really depends, like I said, on how you invest, okay?
Are you guys purchase crypto?
We're not investing in crypto. First of all, whether crypto is halal or not is still, people are debating that. But it's not regulated by the U.S. government. So we don't want to mess with anything that's unregulated. But, you know, we have investors that work with us. They want to invest in crypto. Yeah, go ahead, put in 5% of your portfolio in crypto if that's what you want to do. But that's not, at least not yet. It's not part of a broad-based long-term investment strategy. We're not people who are here trying to help you become rich overnight, okay? We're here to help your money grow in a smart way over time, okay? So, I mean, I always say we're wealth managers, and that's where the wealth management comes in, because we're not like a hedge fund, right? Most advisors, there's so many advisory, offices, brokers across the country. They're not all Warren Buffett. So, you know, if you're trying to find Warren Buffett, you're not going to get that. What you want is somebody who can manage your money in a smart way and help it grow over time. And if you find somebody who can help you do that and help you make smart decisions on what kind of investment vehicle or account to put it in, when to put it in, then that's where you're gonna have your money grow.
One last one. Do you guys help form charitable trusts or other trusts for management?
Yeah. I mean, we're not attorneys, so we don't draft any documents for you, but we help you sort of figure out what you want to do in terms of charitable gifting or estate planning. So we will help you sort of develop a strategy, and then we'll work with attorneys that we know, or maybe you have one, to sort of implement that strategy.
So for the vehicles, for the Roth IRA and the 401k and all of these, the long-term investment ones, basically it doesn't matter the number of trades that happen until it matures, or how does
Yeah, it doesn't.
Okay.
So what happens?
No, that's all. I
Okay. All right. I could go on about it for days. So should we take a break? And would you guys like a break, or should we? Yeah, thank you. If you have any questions, please feel free to come.
There's tea in the back if anybody would like any, inshallah. So feel free.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much for having us tonight. Thank you, Brother Farhan. I would like to start where actually Brother Farhan ended, and to stress on the fact that we are all responsible people. We really have to seek knowledge about one of the most important things in our life, which is akl al-halal. How do we earn our money and how do we spend our money? A lot of people don't take it seriously. A lot of people just think it's just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is concerned about our ibadah. But actually, ibadah, if you're aware of the fiqh in Islam, ibadah is about a quarter of the fiqh Islami, the jurisprudence in Islam. And the mu'amalat, which is transaction. Ibadah is your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, salah, siyam, and all that, and hajj. But when it comes to transactions, the mu'amalat in Islam, more than half of the fiqh Islami covers that area. That's how important and significant it is. So you really have to see, why did they cover that much? Why did they say it's half or more than half it is of Islamic jurisprudence? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, هو أنشأكم من الأرض واستعمركم فيها. استعمركم. استعمار means he is asking you to do imara to the ard, meaning doing your best to make this place a better place by working and investment and financing and all that, to make this a better place. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking you to do that. And then he says, وَأَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا جَعَلَكُمْ مُسْتَخْلَفِينَ فِيهِ. Spend from what I have made you to be trustees or agents or managers. So actually he's telling you that true owner is actually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the money. And he actually gave you and gave him and gave her this amount. He said, I want you to spend it in the best manner possible on my behalf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on his behalf. So remember these things when you're investing. It's not just a joke. You can't just be passive and say, I'll just do my best and that's it. You gotta really educate yourself and seek knowledge in that term so you can please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of my favorite hadiths, Prophet ﷺ said, and listen very well, so hopefully this will stick to your mind and understand the significance of what we're doing tonight about mu'amalat. He says, إن قامت الساعة وفي يد أحدكم فسيلة. Of the day of judgment, the signs of the day of judgment started. Imagine that. The burning, the explosions, all that started. And you had a plant in your hand. If you can plant it before you get it, you set up or stand up, do it. فليفعل. إن استطاع ألا يقوم حتى يغرسها فليفعل. Let him do it, even to the last second of your life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to focus on this duty that you have to do. Don't ever underestimate the significance of what we're doing and the significance of how much you have to seek knowledge about this subject, inshallah. When Umar ibn al-Khattab sent someone to, it was I think a Basra, that man after a while he said, I wanted to do jihad fi sabilillah. So he sent to Umar, he said, Umar ibn al-Khattab, the Khalifa. He said to him, I really want to go do jihad fi sabilillah. It was in Iraq, I believe. So Umar just sent him back a letter, said, awalasta fi jihad? Aren't you in jihad? So it's all about knowledge. Umar understood that you're working very hard, you're actually in jihad. So make sure that you keep these things in your mind and understand that amal, working, is actually jihad fi sabilillah. And that's why we have to take it very seriously. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, خُذُوا مَا آتَيْنَاكُمْ بِقُوَّةٍ. Take what I have given you seriously. So everything that Allah asks us to do, we have to really take it seriously and seek that knowledge, as I said. That's why we're here for today, inshallah, to just try to expand your views about Islam in general and let you see for yourselves that just because you live in a country or live in a world actually that has so many haram ways, you can't just be turned off and turn away. There are many, many other alternatives in Islam. Almost everything that is in and the conventional way, let's say, like the conventional banking, there's something on the other side that is Islamic. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. They did a great job in the many areas of the world, just like the IOFI, which is the accounting and auditing organization for financial institutions, Islamic financial institutions, came out with so many standards to be able to really make sure that we are on the right path. They gathered all kind of scholars from all over the world, Islamic scholars from about 8 different schools of thought, so they can come up with a way of making laws so we can really have alternatives. So alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, nobody has an excuse anymore. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Don't say it's okay that I don't have, alternative. Yes, you do have alternatives. All you have to do is just seek that knowledge, read and ask, and you shall inshallah receive the answer. So today I would like to speak about few things, and I will try to do this, try to simplify it as much as possible. But if you do have the questions and you'd like to expand, just please let me know, because I don't want to go too deep for you to just lose me. So, Brother Zubair spoke about the bonds. Okay, so bonds, yes, he told you there are alternatives, which is the sukuk, and we will talk about this after the first subject. I chose. I believe you're going to see the Salam first. Salam is a deal that, let's go into it and see the first slide. I'm going backwards. Let me go forward. Okay. We're trying to talk about Salam. Salam really have a lot of traders do the contracts of Salam. You'll see a lot of them in farming, farmers. A lot of them don't have the right capital to invest when the season comes in. So what they do is try to get some payments in advance through Salam. So that's what it's called, Salam. And inshallah, we'll go to a little more details. Does anyone know what Salam is all about? You want to raise your hand? Salam, you know Salam? Okay. Anyone else who knows what Salam is? Well, it's rather a new thing. So as I said, this is, let's just take an example first, and then we can go into the details. A farmer doesn't have a capital. Farmer needs money. So to make this life easier for him, it's not his season yet. He needs to invest. He needs to do what it needs, needs to be done so he can start, let's say, his the agricultural side, the farming and all that, to start with the crop. So what he does is he tries to find the right people to buy from him, even though the season is not here. So what we will do is he hooks up with someone who's interested to buy something that he will be providing in the future with an amount that will be paid on the spot before they leave each other. So they have to do that for something that will be delivered in the future. So that's what the Salam is. And let's just go to the description in English here. It says sale of a prescribed commodity, something mawsoof, prescribed for deferred delivery in exchange for immediate payment. So payment has to be paid immediately, and the delivery comes later, okay? Most important thing is the capital is in his hands, so he can start spending to make whatever is necessary. Remember, this is an Islamic way of making things happen that will help make things easier for people. That's why I'm trying to expand your knowledge, inshallah, about this. Permissible to initiate several Salam contracts with different parties and successive contracts. That farmer can have many different buyers for his crop, and it's okay for him to do these contracts, and the buyer also can buy from different farmers. So, and he can buy over a period of time, so successive. So it goes both ways, so they can make things easier for both sides. Capital of Salam must be paid immediately at the place where the contract is concluded. That is, we just covered that, okay? Is it permissible to pay for Salam through debt or loan owed by the seller to the buyer? Let's say I want to buy your crop, and I just met with you, and we want to do the contract so I can receive your crop in the future. Now you owe me money. You owe me money before this contract. Can I use that money? That's the question. Can I use that money to order this, to make this contract, say, you know what, whatever amount you owe me, I want you to deliver the fruit, whatever fruit it is, in the future for that amount of money. That is debt. You know, you owe me that much. Can you do that or not? I'm sorry? Depends on the contract? That's your answer? Okay, and you're saying? Okay, and anyone else wants to take a? Okay, you can't do it. I'm sorry. No, you cannot use that like this. No, it can be done. Okay, so also, the buyer of the there's some conflict here between scholars, but the IOFI, when established this standard, they went with this opinion, but there are others like Ibn Taymiyyah and others who decided that they go against this, which is it's not permitted for the buyer to sell the Muslim fee. Muslim fee is the commodity that I will receive from the seller. That's the Muslim fee. And the money that to be paid is called the capital of the Salam. So Muslim fee is it's not permitted for the buyer to sell the Muslim fee before taking possession of it. He has to take possession, then he can, from there he start acting about dispersing or do whatever. It is permissible for a buyer to exchange the Muslim fee for other goods. That's a nice flexibility here. The buyer once accept currencies after the delivery date, as long as. So when the delivery date comes in, okay, the question is that can the person who's receiving talk to the seller and ask him, can I exchange this for something else? Okay, maybe it's a different demand in the market. As long as they both agree to this, it's done, as long as we have these two points here. Such a substitution was not stipulated in the contract. So we don't say in the contract at the time of delivery it's okay to exchange to whatever other crop there is. So we don't state that in the contract, then it's okay to do it. Okay? And market value of the substitute is not greater than the market value at the time of delivery. Okay, so whatever you're receiving, the substitute cannot be more than that, because now we have a problem with riba. Okay, you received and you have an increase or an excess. Okay, so this is not acceptable. Now a question, are you all with me here? Can you read the question? It says, what if the seller does not have the prescribed goods? For some reason he does not have it, okay? It was too cold, it was whatever, he couldn't deliver. Can he, the question, offer another product from the same genus, kind, group, whatever, such as corn or for wheat? He was supposed to deliver wheat, but then he has corn instead of wheat. Something happened, whatever happened. Can he do that or not? Would you like to answer? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. MashaAllah. Okay. Anyone else would like to take a answer? So here's the question again. What if the seller does not have? What if the seller does not have the prescribed goods? Can he offer another product from the same kind, such as corn for wheat? Yes, he can, as long as they both of them agree to that. Okay? It all comes down to, do they agree, do they not? If he agrees, it goes. That's fine. And as we all say, we don't stipulate that in the contract. We don't say these things. When this happens, if this happens, then it's okay. That flexibility is very important in these deals. Okay. What if the seller delivers good with a quality that is superior, that is better than what the buyer actually ordered? Is that acceptable? The question is that, does the buyer have the choice to accept or not? The buyer. Sure. Okay. So we'll stop here, inshallah, so we can do the Maghrib Salah for the Adhan. We'll wait, and inshallah we'll come back. Assalamu alaikum.